What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Dr. Joey Munoz Show, your go-to podcast for all things health, fitness, and nutrition. I'm your host, Dr. Joey, Nutrition Sciences Ph.D., and founder of Fit for Life Academy. I just finished recording an episode with probably the most humble and kind person I've ever spoken to, not exaggerating at all, Bill Maeda. So you guys probably know who Bill is. He has millions of followers on social media. But Bill's somebody who I've been following for quite some time, and Bill is, I believe, 55 years old, and he looks better than most 20 to 30-year-olds. And his workouts are absolutely insane. I've been following him because of his workout videos, and I thought we were mainly going to talk about fitness and training and all that stuff. And I was completely wrong. The conversation went in a completely different direction. We were really talking about his background, uh, overall mindset, his experiences dealing with cancer and depression. And he really shared a lot about his personal life and some of the lessons that he's learned that have helped him have a more positive outlook on life. And he also really talked about how social media have had a massively positive impact on his overall self-esteem and just positivity or positive outlook on life. I think you guys will really, really enjoy this episode. It's completely different than most of the episodes that I record talking about nutrition and science. This is not that at all, but I think you guys will really enjoy it. Anyways, I'll stop ranting now. Let's go ahead and jump into the episode. I hope you enjoy it. Bill, how are you, my man?
I'm doing well, Dr. Joy. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for being here. As you and I were just chatting about, I came across you on Mark Bell's podcast. And first and foremost, I was impressed by how jacked you are.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Well,
yeah, I
I mean,
mean,
standing next to Enzima, because to me, next to that guy, have you ever met Enzima Young
I haven't met
in
him in person,
person?
but I
Oh my
know obviously who
Lord.
he is, and I know how jacked he is.
Oh man, I mean, but thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, because I felt like I just felt like a stick figure next to Enzima, and even Mark. Well, they're both just bricks, those guys.
Yeah, they're big
But thank
guys.
you, thank you.
No, but just, how lean you are, you're in fantastic shape. Obviously, you're over 50, and most people start to blame age as one of the reasons why they're not in shape, which we'll go into all of that stuff. Um,
Absolutely.
but more than anything, I was really impressed by just like how kind of a person you are and how humble you are. And I was like, man, I really want to have that guy on the podcast and have a conversation just to get to know you a little bit better.
Oh, well, it's an honor to be here, man. I've always wanted to meet you, and man, I'm just stoked. So thank you.
Sweet, brother. You're in Hawaii, right?
I am. Yes, I'm in Honolulu.
That's
My
awesome.
little studio here, I can walk into Waikiki in about 6 minutes. I can be right on the beach. So
Ah, I'm
close to
jealous.
Waikiki. Yeah. Oh, you got to
I
come
live,
out, man.
dude.
Yeah.
So I know you now that lives in Hawaii, but I also have a good
Mm,
friend who lives in Maui.
mm.
You might have heard of him as well. His name's Alan. He owns Maui Athletics.
You know, don't know a lot of people in Maui, but
Okay.
now that you mention it, I'm sure within the next few months I'll probably meet him. You know
I'll
how
have to
things work.
connect you
Yeah,
with him or at least show you
I'd
his
love to.
Instagram because he's a great
Yeah,
guy, super nice as well.
I'm
Uh,
sure he knows my buddy Junior Leoso.
okay.
Everyone knows Junior on Maui, and in fact, in the state of Hawaii, everybody knows Junior Leoso. So I'm sure through Junior we would have a common connection.
Sweet. Now I'm interested in this junior person.
Yeah, check him out. I'll send
Uh,
you his Instagram. He's the best guy. He's like the ambassador of Maui. At least I think he is. He's just the best, coolest guy.
cool, man. Bill, I'd love to start this conversation just to get by getting to know you a little bit better, man. How did you get
Of
into
course.
fitness? What's your background? How'd you get into all this stuff?
Okay. First thing I want people to know, because oftentimes I'm really big into I'm 55, and when I was younger, I used to try and bullshit my way through things, and just like, I was kind of a normal younger guy. But I am not a college graduate. Okay, I like people. I like my clients to know that. I like everyone to know, and I like that because it qualifies, or at least it puts into context some of the things that I say. I have if I like, I know you're a PhD. If I were to say I have one, it's mostly like in experiential learning and just what I know about. I have a PhD in Bill. So I like everyone to know that, because what I say and some of my opinions and some of the things I do are relevant and based on my experience with it only. And it is by no means recommendations and I'm not coming from a position of authority on other people. I'm just speaking as an authority on myself. So that being said, I kind of recently learned, this sounds crazy, that I have a pretty good ADHD. And for years, I've known of ADHD, but I never really thought I had it. But as we go along here, if you know anything about it, I'm learning. You probably might see, like I have to struggle sometimes to stay on the same track. Like if I'm talking about something to actually stay, or I'll just all of a sudden lose my train of thought. And I stopped smoking weed and all that kind of a good long time, but it's still, yeah, we could talk about weed and all that fun stuff, steroids, bring it, let's bring it. But yeah. So anyway, I started around maybe 8 or 9 or 10. I was just a hyper kid. Back then they called it hyperkinesis. So I was kind of a hyperkinetic kid, but I was always very physically and active and very visceral. I used to like to wrestle in kindergarten. I was always trying to, there was this Japanese character, a Japanese program, but that was big in Hawaii. It's called Kikaida. And
Okay.
there was all karate and, the Japanese anime, it was like our version of anime, but real life actors in these suits, and they'd karate and fight with each other. And I just loved that. I just always had, and I was one of those kids that always, like, anything I could make a projectile weapon out of, I was anything I could shoot, from a slingshot to a meat stick shooter with a spool, anything that could project. So physical fighting and shooting things was just my thing from a very young age. And I guess what got me, I guess, I recall, how was I, 8, 9, when I first I saw Bruce Lee one night. I think it was Enter the Dragon or something, or maybe I forget. There was a scene where he's taking these nunchaku, like he rips off his shirt and he starts doing all this nunchaku stuff. And I'd never seen muscles like that on a person.
Yeah.
And when you're a kid, I didn't know that he was about 140 pounds, because to me it looked like what most people look like, the Hulk. But I'd never seen so much muscle. I'd never seen it move like that, and I could just see like an energy just come. And I was like, that. And I think I'm one of a few million people that probably started their fitness either through him or Schwarzenegger. So I started literally that night. I went down into my dad's, he had an old tool shed, and I knew that he had various lengths of chain. And one happened to be cut, I don't know, maybe it was a foot or so long. And I was a little kid, and I started doing nunchaku with that chain behind my back and just beating the hell out. My hands were just trash, but I didn't care. I wanted to move that chain like Bruce Lee. And then I started doing all those push-ups. He was doing the push-ups on his fingers and throwing kicks and all that. And I was trying to walk like him, all like, that. And I was just imagining, I was actually a plump I was kind of a roly-poly, just moon-faced Asian kid. I was a little belly and some boobies and everything. But Joey, I literally believe, I've heard, I might have been Schwarzenegger say that you can will the shape of your body, especially when you're young, when it's actually forming, that you can actually you can change the shape of your physicality by just having a very powerful image of what you want it to look like or be like. And to a degree, because if you look at my family members, my mom's side of the family, they're taller, but they're big boned, and there's not a lot of definition, not a lot of vascularity. My dad's side, they're smaller boned, very ripped, very vascular people, but they're small.
Yeah.
So, but I pulled more my mom's side where I was kind of what I call hammy.
Mm-hmm.
I had big limbs, but it just looked like big hams. There was no real shape to them. But as I started studying Schwarzenegger and Van Damme and Stallone, like Stallone in Rocky 3 and then in Rocky 4, that look. And then when I saw Ivan Drago, Dolph Lundgren, and I saw like that, those images were so powerful.
Yeah.
They were constantly burned in my, and when I trained, I wanted to have traps like Rambo, when he's holding that machine gun and his traps, I just constantly held that. And it sounds like hooey, but if there's young people listening and they're trying to figure, and they don't feel like they have these genetics, and maybe I did have, clearly I have some kind of genetic thing going on, but my starting genetics were kind of really, and I didn't really have this kind of definition that people see on Instagram until I literally got into like my 50s. It's strange. If you look at picture or video of me in my 40s, I was bigger, but I had nowhere. So it's an evolving process. But anyway, going back to your initial question, it started with Bruce Lee, and then and actually Stallone had a big, because when I saw the bodybuilders like Schwarzenegger was, oh my, but that look to me was excessive. It was like, that's like, whoa, okay, that is like super impressive. And I knew he was the best in the world. And my thing was, and I grew up, I didn't really have very high self-esteem when I realized as, I got older. So I was like, I would never look like that anyway. So that's why even I trained, I'd read all his books, and, eating meat in the forest and squatting until you die. And then you wake up and eat more meat and squat until you die. I tried all of that. But my thing was, I like Stallone because his characters matched more the person I was at the time, where he's kind of beaten down and he's coming from a place of, I didn't come from a place of socioeconomic disadvantage, but his character's always been kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
and Rambo, kind of a veteran just wandering through Washington, and up in the mountain. I really related to him. And then on his physicality, I said, I can maybe I can get that look. Because the way Stallone looked, that looked like, he looked like a warrior.
Yeah.
And so,
I would say you've
anyway,
superseded some of that now, man.
I'm sorry.
I would say you've exceeded some of that now.
Well, and then from there I started. I got into. I started taking. I took a little Kyokushin karate kind of late. I started at 15, and I was very undisciplined. By then I was a pretty wild. I wasn't a criminal kid, but I was cutting school, and my grades were terrible.
Yeah.
Kind of fighting with my folks. But I did get into karate, and then I dropped out because I discovered weed shortly thereafter. And that just put me in a, and I'm not going to say that was all bad. Everyone says, yeah. And then I got into drugs, and because weed, in a way, it kind of, I was able to discover other things about myself. And I was able to, the weed at the time allowed me to really get inside myself. I've heard Joe Rogan, not to compare myself to him, of course, but I've heard lots of people, Rogan, a lot of jiu-jitsu people, a lot of mountain bikers, a lot of professional athletes. And I'm by no means advocating training high, because there was a big downside, and I don't know if we have time for that, but that is not the message I'm giving. I'm trying to give a balanced perspective, because everybody shit talks, these things, and for good reason, because a lot of the stuff I struggle with to this day came from cannabis as well. But it was, in a way, at the time for me, what I felt an appropriate teacher, which then things got out of hand like they normally do. But
yeah.
So anyway,
it's funny that you bring that up, because I have a similar experience when I was younger. And it's funny that I'm saying when I was younger, because you said I'm still young, and obviously I'm still young.
No, but it's all relative, brother.
Yeah, it's all relative, right? But I have a similar experience where, like, to me, sometimes I laugh in my own head that I'm a quote unquote doctor, because I was literally the worst student growing up. I almost failed out of school. For me, a lot of it stemmed from family issues at home. just like a
Okay.
lot of instability at home, and a lot of things that I would experience between like family dynamics and stuff definitely influenced the way I acted in school, and I just acted out a lot. Um,
Sure.
in the moment as a kid, you don't think about that. You just think you're a bad kid or whatever. But like now thinking about it in retrospect, it kind of makes sense. And um, similarly, man, I was skipping school, not going to class. When I was 15 is when I got caught smoking weed by my mom, and I got in all sorts of trouble. And it's funny, man, because the reason why I'm bringing this up is because so many people think that your past defines who you are, and it doesn't in any way, right? Your past, yes, you always carry your past with you, and it can influence certain things, maybe the way that you think about things, but it definitely doesn't um, prevent you from being able to improve or change or accomplish certain things.
Yes, for sure. Dr. Joey, I wanted to clear up, maybe take an opportunity to clear up a question that's oftentimes asked, because you said you were very kind in saying that I'm kind of I am an older guy, and I'm rather, like, people consider me fit. And of course, the question that I've learned is, like, there's not a video that I post where there's at least a few comments asking either with the syringe emoji or the TRT, and oftentimes they're not really cutting, or they're not meant with bad intention. People truly want to just
Mm,
know, dude, are you on TRT, PEDs, and testosterone, any of that stuff? And just for the record, and I've made videos about this, but I don't know where to look. But if I were to look any individual listening to this, you included, in the eye, I would tell you from my heart and my soul, I've never used any of that stuff. Younger years, by accident, I have never used exogenous testosterone, growth hormone, any analogs or whatever of hormone. I do use, and I've kind of stopped. I've took a break from peptides for about the last almost 3 months. I took BPC 157 and the TB 500
mhm.
peptides for my joint. I'm going to restart them again because I was using them wrong, I realize. We can talk about that if you like, but I just wanted to get that off the table, that I don't use any of those substances. And if you look at my social media, I'm not selling programs. I'm not selling nutritional advice. I don't even advertise I'm a personal trainer. I consider myself retired because I only work with a small group of my old clients, but I don't sell anything. So for me to put myself at what I feel is unnecessary risk,
Yeah.
it's not like they're bad. If you're clinically low on testosterone, growth hormone, by all means, bring that up. I feel like there's more, from what I know, there's probably more health consequences from living with
Yeah.
chronically low form. I don't know. But for me, um, I just, everything that I'm presenting is what was given to me by my parents and their ancestors. And yeah, that's all about, that's about all I can say. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to get that off the table and maybe you can explain to me, like I actually have on several of my last blood tests for over a year, maybe going on 2 years now. I've tested actually for low available testosterone. I
Mm.
have high, um, what is that?
Sex hormone binding globulin.
The sex hormone binding globulin. Yes, thank you, thank you. That was it.
Yeah.
There's something that has to do with goblin. Okay, um,
Uh,
sex hormone binding globulin. So I have what appears to be normal testosterone, but that SB whatever thing, SS whatever, that is on the high side. I also have low IGF.
mm,
So, but at the same time, I feel it. I don't feel like I have the energy. My recovery ability is not what it used to be.
yeah.
But at the same time, I can deal with it. It's okay. I'm trying to get more sleep now. And that's why I say I wasn't giving the peptides and all the other things I was trying to do a fair chance, because I was averaging my entire life since I was a teenager. I've averaged less than 5 hours of sleep. And that's like that's like the worst thing in the world. And, it sounds so, it's one of the most crazy things, especially now with the awareness of how now it's not like brand new, but for all the years that people have been pushing the importance of sleep, like probably before I was born, but certainly now, I was always wired for 5 or less hours when I was, when I was in high school. I wanted to be in the special forces. I grew up in the 80s, so, all the movies were Rambo and, special forces, Green Beret, and I just got caught up in that. And so I started training myself from a teenager to not need sleep, to be able to go without food, to train hard, to run in the hottest weather. I'd purposely wear rucks and camouflage. I was that freak psycho kid in the neighborhood that I'm wearing full, what they call, kit or whatever. I'm literally like a teenager dressed up for war, wearing a Alice pack and running at the hottest time of the day because I was wanting to get ready for like Ranger school or something. And I think that might have actually damaged something in my brain, doing stuff like that young. And then for years and years and years, my thing was sleep is for pussies. I used to just say that. I mean, right? Especially when I was tired. I wouldn't tell other people that.
That's
I
so
didn't care if
funny.
other people. But whenever I would get tired, I'd say, sleep for pussies. Fuck it up, you fuck. And I just cursed myself out like my own drill instructor. And by the way, I never made it into the military because in high school, I had a football injury and they had to put stainless steel screws in my shoulder. And that made me ineligible for military service. And even if there were drafts now, they wouldn't take me. So, oh well. But anyway, yeah.
That's a funny story.
The hormone thing off the table, but and maybe you can. But I've always wondered, and I also eat extremely high carbohydrate, and not good kind either. Sorry, man. People saw what I recently posted a video of me and one of my dogs, and I'm eating waffles and I'm shooting Costco whipped cream on that thing, and and that in a way it was kind of a joke, but I'm not above eating like that either. I like waffles. I like pancakes. I eat bowls of cereal with milk, and I just do that, and it doesn't at this point seem to affect. I don't diet. I'm not really that concerned with being ripped. It just, if there's one thing I can say I don't do is I never stuff myself.
Yeah.
I just don't. So I eat randomly. I eat if I'm at a party and there's only one type of food, I'm not going to be that bitch that says, well, do you have it? Or I bring my own thing and like make a big, I don't do that. It's all fried, like Raising Cane's fries. I love that. I'll eat that all day long, and I'll eat the fries and everything, and I'm not, it's hard for me to say these things because I don't want to be setting a bad example, but at the same time, I want to be honest about what I do and how I do it. So people will understand that, because I think for me, there's a genetic component at play here that I can't explain, and I really don't think too hard about it, but I can eat randomly sugar, ice cream, cupcakes, and gummy bears. And at this point, at least from my appearance, it doesn't seem to make that much of a difference. At the same time, full disclosure, I am pre-diabetic. So I want other people to know that I already said I have low testosterone or available testosterone, low growth hormone. I also have high A1C. And for a little while, I was also anemic. I also had stage 3 colon cancer 12 years ago, most likely tied to my sleep hygiene and my diet. I want people to know all of this stuff. Because a lot of people say, I want to be like Bill when I get older. I said, here's what you need to know about Bill first. Yeah, you need to know. Bill almost died of kind of, and here's another important thing I want people to know. And I should go without saying, but just because someone looks healthy, or just because they're ripped and they have veins and their skin is kind of like whatever, that doesn't mean they're healthy.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they are healthy, man. I mean, like, yeah, if people like, I tell people, hey, in order to, people say, man, I wish I was you, or I wish I had what you have. I said, in order for you to have what I have, you have to be willing to take everything that I've had in the past and
Yeah.
everything that I didn't take in the past, because the sum of that is the result. And I statistically am at more at risk than the average 55-year-old guy of dying in 10 years. My risk of dying within the next 10 years is much higher based on my cancer risk, my current my A1C levels, the chemotherapy that I went through,
Yeah.
my recreational drug use from my earlier years. And by that, I mean, let's talk about, I did a little bit of meth. Coke was never my thing, but I did some meth back in the late 80s, early 90s. That was kind of a thing for a few years. Smoked tons of weed, LSD, mushrooms. I mean, honestly, I still dabble in psychedelics currently. But I wanted to get that all out there, because it's important for people to know that despite what I look like, and despite, no, I'm doing a lot of things wrong, and I'm not advocating that other people, oh, I can do things wrong too, and I'm going to get no, do things right, because
Yeah.
and going forward, I'm trying to manage what looks like diabetes. And I know that people with diabetes, they die apparently 15 years earlier than the people that don't have diabetes. Or I don't know if that's all true, but I like to take stuff like that as true, because it just results in better living habits, whether it's true or not.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt the episode, but I wanted to take a second to talk to you about our coaching community, the Fit for Life Academy. If you're trying to improve your health and body composition, aka lose some fat and build some muscle, and you want to do it in a healthy and sustainable fashion, you probably want to check us out. Fit for Life Academy is designed to help you achieve a lean, fit, and healthy body without having to follow random fad diets, spend hundreds of dollars on supplements that don't work, or do endless hours of cardio. The last thing you need is another quick fix that doesn't provide sustainable results. This is where we differentiate ourselves from the majority of the fitness industry. Our goal is to help you achieve lasting, sustainable results by helping you develop healthy habits around nutrition, lifestyle, and exercise that actually move the needle forward. In addition, our community emphasizes education, support, and regular life coaching calls to ensure you receive the guidance and accountability you need. Using our methods, we've helped hundreds of individuals break free from the yo-yo dieting cycle, improve their relationship with food and exercise, and most importantly, achieve the lean and fit body they've always wanted to have. If you want to check us out, go over to fitforlifeacademy.health/membership to learn more. The link to our website will be in the description of this episode. Yeah.
So
You bring up so many great things to talk about.
let's talk.
I wanted to point out, man, you brought up such a good point that people are always comparing themselves, right? Like, oh, this person has this and that person has that. And oh, I want to be like Bill, or I want to be like this guy. And it's funny because when people say those things, they're really only talking about the positive attributes that they see, right? And most people
Right.
don't understand the hardships or struggles or all the other stuff. And when you say like you want to be like a particular person, it really includes the whole package, right? The
It
positives
really
and the
does.
negatives. And oftentimes, like, if you really compare and contrast the positives and the negatives, most of the time it's not worth it. It's like it's completely pointless to be comparing yourselves to other people all the time.
At the end of the day, it is. You can take the wealthiest, the most glamorous, the most coolest, the most beautiful people, and if you knew everything that
Yeah.
they did and that happened to them, as well as didn't happen to them, to get them where they are now, I think in most cases we would say, you know what, I'm cool. I'm good with me. If we saw from the moment they entered this planet, everything that happened to them to get where they are, especially celebrities and people that seem to be the outliers.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I have found if you look into their past, there's always some traumas or things that like are outside of what normal people would consider traumatic, like some really heavy stuff. And it was almost like to either survive that or to compensate for these things that happen, they developed into these larger than life figures and characters. What I've learned, I've known some very tormented off camera, when they're not on the podcast, they're not on social media,
Yeah.
whatever they're doing. Ooh, they're really dark. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
what would call normal people would be very happy being normal, man. Just when they see the big picture, they're like, wow.
Yeah.
Sort of like, remember that it's called A Christmas Carol, Ebenezer Scrooge. And
Of
when
course.
we got to see into the life of that guy, that his assistant who he would just shit on all day, right? And like, you're
Yeah.
gonna work through Christmas and all this just dumping on that guy. And then the ghosts of Christmas past kind of showed him what that, and he's like, oh man, it totally changed him. Like it was just a big paradigm shift. And I think it'd be like that. I'm pretty sure in almost every case, people would think, I'm okay with my life now. Yeah, I don't know.
No, for sure, man. It's funny. It's funny because constant comparison also just like removes so much joy from your own life, right? This is something I think we all deal with, and it's important to remind ourselves of because I mean, I'm not going to say I'm immune to it. We're all human, right? We all experience these emotions from time to time, and for me, it can be like, I want to grow my social media stuff and I want to grow my business, and I'm learning about these things, and I'm still young, but I put a ton of effort into them, and then I can see other people that are like my age or maybe a little bit older and have all of this success with their business and all that stuff. I'm like, man, like, why can't that be me? Why can't I do this? And then sometimes I have to just like bring myself back into reality and be like, listen, regardless of whether or not there are people that are more successful than me, I'm in a great place. I have a great family. I live in an awesome place. Like I'm happy for everything in my life. And it's important to be grateful from that perspective too. Cause if not, you're just always constantly comparing yourself to other people and never really enjoying your life in the first place.
You brought up I did it. At your young age, but I can say that at 30.
I'm an old soul.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that, because to me, I was always taught, and you hear this a lot, that if you want to stop being miserable and you actually want to start finding maybe a little salvation in life, that you should focus on gratitude.
Yeah.
And I've tried that. I've tried to, man, I'm going to wake up and make my list of everything I'm grateful for, my wife, my kids, and yeah, I got a roof over my head. But, that list does not make me immune from comparing my shit to others.
Of course.
And when I started focusing instead on gratitude, I started focusing on how my mind below my awareness is always comparing my situation and what I've got going on to, like you said, to what appears to be going on with other. And I think I emphasize the word appear because that is normally most of what it is. It's an appearance. And my perspective of that appearance is almost as wrong as the appearance itself. So once I started focusing on comparison, I became a lot more settled. My awareness of how I compare things and myself with others and things, and not just people. Like I'm always comparing the way things are now and people's values in 2024 with how people used to be in 1987. And I'm always
Yeah.
people were better in the 80s and 90s. And in some ways that might be true, but there were still psychopaths, pervert, there was, as long as it's human beings, there's going to be some rebranded shit going on, right?
Of course.
But I found that if I can just say, what, stop living in the 80s and the 90s and wishing the economy was like in the 90s or a party, man. Like, I was a young man in the 90s and there was no Cold War. Everybody was friends and money was flowing and we were making individual use plastics as fast as we could and drinking little bottles of water and, but yeah, anyway, the comparison thing, that for me was a little bit, I was able to because that allowed me to be grateful when I stopped comparing. because to me, the locus of gratitude has to be established by first getting a grip on the addiction to comparing things. Because once I got a grip on that, once I became aware of how much I do, just being aware of how much I do it, fixed a lot of it. And then, yeah, because I realized that no matter what I compare myself, both what I'm seeing is most likely an incorrect image. And then how I'm perceiving that incorrect image is compounding the incorrectness of it. So therefore, I'm creating all these illusions that are resulting in me mostly feeling like crap. Nobody compares themselves to people that they're doing better. Like, hey, I'm doing better than that guy living under the park bench. I feel good now. We're always looking, at the guy that appears to be above us. So, man, once I kind of became aware of that, then the gratitude and everything else started to make a little more sense, and it, I think, helped me more. But
Yeah,
that's me.
that makes perfect sense. I think an aspect of it too is like, I think comparison is a normal human behavior, right? I think what's also important is how we respond to comparing ourselves to others, in the sense that, like, you can compare yourselves to others who, as you mentioned, appear to be doing better than you and feel bad about where you are, or you can use it as inspiration and motivation, right? I think a lot of that is
That's true.
psychological as well, because I don't know, man. I think a lot of this, I do think, when it comes to like body composition, it's easy to say genetics because it's something we see visually. I think a lot about the way we think and we internalize things is partially genetic too, right? Like, it has to be. And I've always been fairly positive person, partly because it's something my mom always instilled in me. But
Good.
if I see somebody doing really well, I tend to be pretty happy for that person, and then just like
Right.
feel fueled to like do better myself, right? And it doesn't necessarily impact me negatively. I don't know how somebody can get from the opposite of that, where they're always feeling bad about themselves, to being inspired by the
Well,
success of others, but I think it's important.
Joey, thank you for tempering my statement because, I should say that the way I would compare myself to others was coming from a very well-established platform of low self-esteem. Like
Mm,
like basically I've learned in the last few years, almost my entire developed life, like from the time maybe I was adolescent, maybe even as a kindergartner, I have suffered from depression. So my default when comparing myself to others was that everyone was better than me. And
mm,
at the time, there seemed to be a lot of evidence to support that. But once again, it was based on my perspective and my self-concept. So yes, like you said, you brought up a great point. The only reason why we are probably top of the food chain species right now is because comparison is simply another name for pattern recognition, or we like to
sure.
call it algorithm, right? It's a type of an algorithm that our brains are like in the old days. If you notice, like when you looked out at the out in the forest and you notice, wait a second, that thing up in the tree, oh, that's a leopard up there. That pattern, because that's what our brains used to do. They were comparing what in that foliage doesn't look right. But
Mm,
now, since we don't have that burden upon us, we now direct it toward that other guy's car or those cool shoes that or that bag is amazing. And
yeah.
because we have all of that horsepower built into us to actually survive. But now it's much more of a social, we survive more through status within the tribe than we do having to compare pattern in our environment that could result in our death. So natural, like you said, it's not something to be, but so I guess the bigger point maybe I should make it, once I became aware of that, I was actually depressed. And the thing I learned was depression never looked like depression. It doesn't look sad. It doesn't look morose. Some of the most depressed people in the world are the most upbeat appearing, confident looking people. Like they're what we call the life of the party. You know, their personalities are big. They say all the right things. They show up in all the right, they're just cool. But I've learned that, you know, and I used to try to project an image like that of like everything's fine. Whenever I'd run into people, what's up? How you doing, buddy? How your kids? You know, just that shuck and jive kind of bullshit thing. And it, now yeah. So once I kind of got a grip on my own depression and kind of coming to terms with that, then the way I compared things changed as well.
Yeah.
We're trying to get to the root of the root. Like
And what?
psychotherapy is so emphasized. Anyway, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. You actually just brought up psychotherapy. I was going to ask you because I think this would be something that would benefit people who are listening who might relate to what you're saying. What helped? What helped you change your mindset? Help you perhaps break through from depression? What's really been helping?
You know, Joey, it wasn't there. Okay, here's what made me prior to the pandemic in 2020, when the world, at least Hawaii, and apparently the rest of the world locked down, the years leading up to it. So I had my cancer. I kind of cleared my chemotherapy, got through my cancer by about 2013. In 2014, my second child was born, and she shouldn't technically have been born because I was so nuked with all those chemicals, but she's a miracle baby and doing fine now. But anyway, I was in a pronounced state of depression that I didn't realize. Probably, I wouldn't say even before I had cancer. I was just always a very aggressive, rather angry, younger person. And that went well into my 40s. You know, you would think I did not. So anyway, the number one, the first thing that started to kind of, I guess, okay, so going back to the pandemic, here we go, ADHD. 2018,
20?
I was,
Yeah.
yeah, so about 2018, I was already thinking of closing my personal training practice.
Okay.
Because coming out of my, from 2014 all the way up until that time, my body was different. I don't know if it was the chemotherapy. I mean, to this day, I still have peripheral nerve damage in my fingers and in my feet. It affects the circulation, especially in my feet. So that's why I have to do a lot of these, like, I use blood flow restriction training to kind of build my capillaries and some of my, but anyway, my body was not the same. And that, number one, the fact that I got cancer, I was so arrogant at the time. Like I consider myself kind of like not that cancer should happen to other people. I don't want cancer on anybody, but I was just shocked that I got the degree and the severity of the cancer. I had to have my ascending colon removed. I mean, you know, it was a big, and then, so I was depressed. I was wanting to close my practice because literally most of my clients are older people and they were training more often and more successfully than I was. Like a run that I used to just take to warm up for things would leave me sore for days.
Yeah.
And you know, and that just really, I just realized, so I was already thinking of closing things down. And then when the pandemic hit in 2020 and everyone shut down, I thought the first thing I thought was, okay, if I don't die of whatever this thing is, at least this is a great opportunity for me to fail, to close my business under the smoke screen of COVID or of a pandemic, because lots of businesses were closing at the time. And the shame, especially in Hawaii, we're a small community here. And I was kind of looked at as the guy who'd been training in the state of Hawaii for a long, I was an OG even back then. And for the shame of me having to close my business, because I just wasn't into it and I wasn't, my client base was just, you know, I just wasn't bringing the energy that would bring a lot of clients to me. I was going through motions, and many of my clients are listening to this, and a lot of them are still with me after many years. man, I love you guys. And but I'm letting you know, I was in a weird place at the time. But okay, so going back to your question, what the weirdest thing? I started posting to my YouTube channel in April of 2020. We shut down in March. So by April, I was bored enough and I was working with clients on Zoom and none of them were training. Everyone was at home. Nobody knew what to do. Everybody was just screwed up.
Yeah.
And one of my clients said, hey, man, I said, hey, what would it take for you to, cause I'm just drinking and I'm eating bun cake and my wife and I are arguing. And well, if I'm not training with you, I'm just a mess. I said, hey, man, would it help you if he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm going in my front yard and I'm doing some kind of shit. And he says, can you do a 10-minute workout for me? Just something that you think I could do for 10 minutes. And back then I was so weak, Joey, I couldn't even do a pull-up by the time the pandemic rolled around. I couldn't hang from the bar. That bar that you might have seen me doing pull-up, my Instagram, I couldn't do one back then. That's how, and push-ups were difficult for me. That's where I was. And now he's saying, can you show me what your workout is? I'm like, oh shit. So I literally the first workout I did on YouTube was me trying to I set a timer for 10 minutes. I put the camera in front of me and I tried to do as many push-ups with lots of breaks as I could in that 10-minute time. For some reason, when I posted that, it was the worst video. People from YouTube I started getting comments. My wife was just, dude, aren't you hat? No, what do you, because we're getting comments and people were starting to subscribe. And so long story short, people thinking, man, that was cool. Are you going to tomorrow? And I said, well, based on this response, I think I will. I have nothing better.
Yeah.
And it turned into a every single day thing. Well, I think I posted on YouTube on my channel is called Fit Pro Hawaii. I posted on that every single day without missing a single day for almost 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And then by that time, my daughter was like, Daddy, nobody's watching these freaking videos. I mean, I got my subscriber count grew, then it stalled, but I wasn't doing it for that. Joey, I'm so backward. I didn't even know that you can make money from YouTube or from social media. I had back in 2020, I was like, that's just shit that people do. And why even bother answering comments? Because, I was an idiot. So anyway, my daughter got me on TikTok. And I'm not doing TikTok. She says, Daddy, you got to do what you're doing on TikTok. Nobody wants to watch your stupid long ass videos. Just take something fun from the video my TikTok went off. Like, I think the second video I ever posted got well over 1 million views. My follower count started. And I thought, oh, this is one of those things these social media sites do. Like, it happens to everybody. Sucker you into posting more, which did work. I was suckered hard. I started posting daily to TikTok and my follower count went up to 1 million fast. But I thought that happens for everybody. I am so not special. I am such, all this crap I was posting was just shit I've been doing in my office by myself for 20 years. I was doing stuff like that. But as the comment and the engagement, and I started to read these people's comments, this is crazy, but I've only been a personal trainer. After I was told I couldn't be in the military, I didn't go from one job to the next and then ended up being a personal trainer. Right out of high school, I was a trainer and that's all I've ever done. But because I'm kind of also socially awkward, this is the perfect job for me because I have ADHD and I'm socially awkward. So I can fixate on one person. I know exactly how long I'm going to be with the person. And I am in kind of control. It's my room and I can run the show and it was perfect for me. But because I was so isolated, I had the illusion of seeing a lot of people, but it was all the same wonderful people over and over again. I got what I called very inbred on my knowledge. So I started creating a lot of the stuff that you see on my social media was just kind of like, when you only have guppies that are stuck in a little pool together, all they can do is interbreed with each other. And then you have mutation. So what you see on my social media, these exercises that look like variations of deadlifts and pull-ups and squats and weird things, those are like the inbred mutations of me just being stuck in the office well, until we lost the video, being stuck in this office. I've been stuck in this office for over 23 years I've been in here. And all I did when my clients were here, in between clients, was just come up with these weird things, mostly because, all the stuff I develop is for fighting. I no longer fight, but I always wanted to be my weightlifting. I didn't care about being strong. Weights were a tool to make me combat ready, simulate the rigors of combat, and to harden my body for the rigors of combat. So,
Yeah.
like all of these spinning kettlebell, sorry about that,
Dogged.
spinning kettlebell lunge thing. The things that people see that might look like stunt, they're not. There's a very martial locus for their development. It all had to make me in some way better, and others that were interested better at fighting or taking a beating. So that was my formula.
Hey guys, some of you may not know that I'm the scientific advisor for a supplement company called Outwork Nutrition. I help with the formulation of new products to help ensure that they're effective and backed by science. Unlike many other supplement companies out there, we don't rely on exaggerated claims or flashy marketing tactics. Instead, we let the science speak for itself. We take pride in formulating products that deliver real results, helping you achieve your fitness goals in a meaningful way. If you're in the market for supplements like protein powder, pre-workout, or recovery products, make sure to check us out at outworknutrition.com. And as a thank you for being an avid listener of this podcast, use code Joey for an exclusive discount at checkout. You can find the link to our website down in the description of this podcast episode. Remember, our goal is to empower you with science-backed supplements that truly make a difference. Choose Outwork Nutrition and elevate your fitness to new heights.
So anyway, going back to your original question of the depression, as I started to read these comments, one of the things I was depressed about was all the years I've been training clients, and they always spoke well of me, but I was pretty sure that if I were to die on any given day, no one would ever. I always wondered, is what I'm my life going work yet? Is it worth anything? I mean, I would kill myself in this gym that I'm sitting in day after day, hundreds and hundreds of hours and thousands of reps. I would destroy myself here. No one ever knew, unless I told my wife when I got home, and she would just go, "Oh, cool, man. 100 reps, good for you. Let's eat." And you just got used to hearing all this crap. So yeah, well, she shouldn't jump up and down. She's been with me for 31 years. But anyway, so when I started to get comments from people saying, "I have never seen that before," or "I was about ready to stop lifting because I was bored," or
Yeah.
"that variation of a single arm deadlift doesn't hurt my back, but a regular deadlift killed me," or "that variation of the pull up where you only went up 1/4 of the way, but you made that okay. You told me it's okay to do 10 tiny little scapular retraction,
Yeah.
then try to kick and scream for one chin over the bar, anything goes."
Yeah.
When I started to get those comment stories, that gave me a sense of worth. And I'm sorry, everyone says, as long as you got friends and family that love you, you're fine. Wrong. And I don't mean to sound ungrateful. Without the base of my family, my wife, my daughters, my parents, the people, without that foundation, I couldn't do what I was doing with my clients, or I couldn't just function. But at the same time, I think it's important, at least for people like me, we need validation outside of the people that have to love us. And that sense of social validation is a form of, you hear of this loneliness epidemic. Well,
Mhm.
I was in that way. One form of loneliness is wondering, if what I have spent my entire life developing and doing is worth uh, uh, anything to another person who doesn't know me.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is, could, once I start to realize, oh, what I'm doing here is helpful and has some value to other, I'm not just flexing muscle. I didn't open my Instagram and my TikTok so I can say, check out this toe and look at me. No, if I could, that was the hook. It apparently my physicality would hook people because I
Mm.
didn't know that the way people select or what brings people to videos is when they're flashed a whole bunch of little thumbnails. And what they see on the thumbnail, I had no idea how people were finding my videos. But apparently, as soon as I do the video with a shirt on, no one watched the freaking because just.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But if there's some old guy with like, and when here's another thing, a lot of people say like, oh, I'll never be ripped. I'm going to pick a little offshoot here. In general, as you get older, if you don't get overweight as you get older, your muscle definition comes out.
Well, your skin gets thinner.
It definitely gets thinner. Like now I can
Yeah.
just walk by like a little head or like, I don't know, a piece of grass and I'll cut
Yeah.
myself now. All that collagen and fat and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to be ripped like you. No, being ripped like you means like you're like, yeah, like all the good part of being young starting to slowly leave your body. So no, I mean the rip thing might work for Instagram, but from
It looks cool.
it looks cool, but man, you miss it. You miss it, man. Not
Yeah.
having all that plumpness in your face and that nice skin that you used to have. And oh no, man. Uh, yeah, there's like I'm saying, things are not always as they seem. But going
Yeah.
back to as I started to actually answer comments, and then and things start to just develop, and I have to be honest. I'm a person, and I always had very low self-esteem. From the time I was a little child. I get ADHD angry. My parents and my teachers didn't know how to deal with it. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, where if you behave the way, like if you threw a toy or you threw your crayons because you couldn't color in the line, you got punished. You're a bad kid. You're
Yeah.
ungrateful for breaking your toys, and you got your ass beat, and then you'd be sent in the corner. You stand out of the class, you go some kind of shame kind of thing. And I got that from preschool. So by the time I was well into my 20s and 30s, big and strong enough to be very angry and decades of insecurity layered upon each other, that's when and that went well into the time. So I didn't start my social my what I call my real social media. I've had a YouTube account since 2009, I think. But
Mhm.
it was just there so I could send certification videos to the ARC-based, the Russian kettlebell, and to certain certification organizations, so I wouldn't have to fly to the mainland. That's the only reason why I really had my YouTube channel at the time, was so that they could see that I could pass their test. So my real social media started in 2020, and yeah, that's when I kind of started to, I guess, I felt that I was validated, that all of the
Yeah.
years that I had spent here were of some value to some people, and I couldn't I didn't, well, going back to, so yeah, it was, when you read the comments on my videos, it gets I e I learned the term imposter syndrome because it gets, even now, Joy, and I don't mean to sound like, I truly, from my heart, I don't mean to sound like an arrogant threat, but I can't always read more than a few comments in a row because they are so nice.
Yeah.
They are so deep. And the person, I don't call the people that follow me followers. I refer to them as people. Because number one, I don't want them to follow me. If I can,
Yeah.
they can take some, but they shouldn't literally follow me because I do a lot of shit wrong, right? And but that aside, at the end of the day, that's a human being,
Yeah.
just like me. I am no better than anybody else. Especially when you've spent as many years as I have, feeling like you're actually below everybody else.
Yeah.
Now that I'm like, I am certainly not, I'll never forget where I came from, man. I am humbled by what people say to me. I am not like, sometimes I notice certain people that if they're beaten down or if they grow up really poor, once they start getting fame and a little money, it's like there's a rebound or like they get angry and they're like,
Yeah.
and start like, I mean, no, man, because this is temporary. I know it is, man. Temporary as in I could die tomorrow and it can be over, or something better than social media. AI might replace all of us, right? Or I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
never know. I never take it for granted that I'm going to just keep getting more followers and more people are going to kiss my ass. Or all the no.
Yeah.
Number one, no one should kiss my. I don't say kiss. I shouldn't use that term. That's terrible. But people, they
Praise.
and I kiss people's asses too because
Yeah.
I like them. Like,
Yeah.
I like you, Joy. I really, man, I don't know. I think I've been a few comments, but thank you for, but, but going back to it, getting validation outside of the people we love. I know that sounds kind of bad, but I think it's part of the human. We need to know that amongst not just the people that gave birth to us and married us and were born of our loin, but the other members, the guys that live in that tent and that tent and that cave and that cave,
Mhm.
they also think that we're worth something too.
Yeah. Well,
That was huge for me.
yeah. A couple things here I want to point out. So first off, I really get bothered when people talk about social media in a really negative aspect.
Mhm.
Because although there are some negative components, sure, and people can say whatever they want behind their screens, there's so much positive that comes out of it. I've met so many amazing people and I've had the opportunities that I've had and I'm where I'm at in my career literally because of social media, right? You and I are chatting here because of social media. So I always bring that
Yeah.
up because like people are so negative about it. I'm like, man, like just stop being so negative. And
Well,
then no, you go ahead,
I'm
please.
sorry.
No, you go, please,
No,
please, please.
I've fully because I have heard countless, I've seen tons of YouTube videos and just all these things about, the evils of social media. And I would never be one to discount that or say that's not true, but it's just like if you look at social media like most things are as a tool,
Yeah,
right? Like food is a tool.
yeah,
Barbells and kettlebells are, if you look at it as a tool, it's just like anything else. Fire can be used to cook your food or it can be used to cook you. So,
yeah,
it's just like you were saying, Joy, my connection to humanity over the 4 years I've been doing social, I've been and I never started this for this to happen. I truly that's why I'm always grateful. If you want to talk about being grateful and comparing, I compare to I compare the reasons why I started doing social media to the results that I've gotten over
yeah,
the last 4 years. And I'm only grateful because it was never my expectation for this to happen. And being able to meet, like you said, being able to meet people like you and Mark Bell and all the guys from the
yeah,
just the opportunity, and I don't mean to gloat. I truly don't, but social media can the connectivity
sure.
is just I would never be able to and I'm not just celebrities like you, man, but just
I'm
people.
not a celebrity, man. Not even close, dude. You're way more of a
I
celebrity
wish my
than I
camera's
am.
on so you see my face out. But man, no, to me, I literally I get a little startled because I see all your videos. I see all these guys doing these videos. And when I actually can talk to you, I'm like, wow, this is so cool. But no, but with on a more basic level, I really try to answer the comment of people who are not really prominent, like
Yeah,
the people on social media. If if I could allot a straight hour in my day to answer comment and DM, just not with preset answers. I never use those preset answers.
Yeah.
You know, like when I notice on YouTube when some I guess an AI reads the comment and then there's suggested preset
Yeah. Yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
You know, not against people that do that because I understand
Sure.
there's people that are, but if I can't answer it with my own finger typing out each letter, then I would rather not answer it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because to me, that's a person on the other side, and they use their fingers to write their their bodies, their bodies to send me that message, and they deserve at least the same respect. So yeah, um,
Yeah, man. This just speaks
anyway,
to your incredible character, man. Like I said, I think that was one of the things that I really picked up when I listened to your interview with Mark, and I was like, man, this guy's just a really cool guy. I just want to talk to him. I wanted to challenge you on one little thing, which
please.
you said that, and first off, I'm so happy that social media has had such a positive impact on you. When you mentioned that it was the validation of external people, I agree to an extent, but I think more than that, it's feeling a sense of purpose, right? That like what you're doing is actually helping people, is actually being valuable towards other people. Cause I think about that all the time too. Like I've had other jobs besides this job where like I
Mhm.
had zero sense of purpose, right? And like, for example, I
Okay.
used to be a waiter at a restaurant when I was in school. And for a student as a waiter, you make decent money because like people tip you well.
Mhm.
And like when you're a freshman in college and you have three other roommates and rent is like $300, if you're making
Right.
like, I don't know, if you're making $1,000 a week, that's really good money to a young person. But
Oh
like
yeah.
I hated it because I just like found no sense of actual purpose with what I'm doing. So I think
Mhm.
part of it is like you feel a sense of purpose with what you're doing, that like what you're doing is actually worth, right? And it goes beyond you as a person, but the work that you're doing is having a positive impact on the world overall.
Yes, yes. So to qualify it, it is not the the nice comment and the follower counts
Yeah.
and how many views and likes I'm getting. It is that sense that like I'm literally this is funny. I am right now in the midst of I have changed the what I'm posting recently. And I announced it 2 weeks ago. I said I am beat up. I am destroyed. My joints, because I was going out every single day and trying to slay a different dragon. Every single day was like, okay, we're gonna do a 170 pound, 70-pound dumbbell lift. And then next day it was like, okay, we're gonna hang from this and I'm gonna throw a roundhouse kick that I haven't thrown in 3 years. And every single day was some kind of a, death challenge. And
Yeah.
I just so I changed that. I said, this is recovery month, and it's gonna be probably longer than a month. And now I'm posting like dog videos and going to dinner with my wife videos or going into a cold plunge video. Not all that visceral,
Yeah.
dragon slayer stuff that I used to. And you know how, Joey, you can see on your Instagram how many accounts you're engaging per 30 days, right? It tells you you're seeing this many people have seen your account. I went from when I started my 2 weeks ago, it was probably at about 38 million. Okay.
Oh my.
I don't know
God.
every and but that's unusual. So that wasn't normal, by the way.
Yeah.
Normal for me was anywhere from 6 to maybe where I'm at right
Still,
now is about
still insane.
um but and by no means do I mean to brag. I know there's people much bigger and I don't care. But my thing is I have now plummeted to maybe a third of that number of people.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, Joey, have you also it doesn't I told my wife, more importantly than my physical recovery, because, I recently made 2 million followers, and that's usually a place to celebrate on Instagram. But my thing is, if I'm healthy, if my interface with social media is a healthy one, I need to be able to actually change my format for what's better and authentic for me And I hope the message I'm sending, even though the videos aren't as fun, I hope the message will resonate that, especially if you're like me or you're just training too much, you need to chill and just back off and let your ego, because I realized a lot of my ego was tied not to the videos, but to just going out there and kicking my own ass one per day. That's a separate thing.
Yeah.
Because whether the cameras were, I've always done that.
Yeah.
And then when I stopped smoking the weed, that became all my addictive thing went over to that even more.
Yeah.
So, but my thing now is I need to be able to let my the numbers fall and truly be okay with that and not panic and not, because I don't want my sense of self-worth to be tied to the number
Yeah.
on social media. If the comments start changing, that matters way more to me. But if I'm getting a fraction of the views and the fraction of the follow, but the comments are saying, man, that was so helpful to me, or wow, I'm taking a break too now. That means everything. That's value for me. That is, yeah. And if sponsors don't want to, I don't, screw that.
No,
As
man.
soon as they started going after those numbers and wanting the sponsors and the retainers and all, as soon as I do that, this thing ends. It died. And it dies in shame. I would rather, no. So, you know how it is, man.
Yeah. Bill, thank you so much for sharing, man. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and it's gone exactly the way that I thought it would, which is absolutely fantastic and enjoyable. Thank you so much for being here today. I would love to have you back on whenever you want, and we can pick up on this.
Let me know, man. You let me know.
Yeah,
I think we're just getting started here.
I think so too.
Like I said, man, I'm a big fan of yours. I love your videos, man. They're unique to me because your content you're like an investigative reporter, and that's hard to find, man. You confront the big guys and the big issues, and you really balance scales for, I think, a ton of people, man. So just keep doing what you're doing, man. I really admire what you do, and I get a lot of value out of it myself. So,
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, man. For everybody listening, you don't follow Bill. I'm sure a lot of people already follow you, but just at Bill Maeda on Instagram. I'll put the links down in the description. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Fit Pro Hawaii, right? I'll put all the links there for people to find you. Bill, again, thank you so much. For those of you guys that listened to the entire episode, as always, thank you so much for caring about what we have to share here on the podcast. All I ever ask of you, if you enjoy the podcast, is to leave a rating or rate the podcast, I should say, and leave a review. Thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you during next week's episode.